Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Deal with D and J. I am your co-host, DJ McCatherine, joined here with the other co-host, Jacob Prail. Championships. Oh, wow. Championships after championships coming on, right? Week after week, we've got the national championship for the college football playoffs that just happened, Jacob. Conference champions coming up this weekend, and the Super Bowl coming in 2 weeks. A lot of football. It's a sad ending for college football. A great ending, but sad nonetheless that it's over. A couple of big games coming up. Jacob, how are we doing? What are you feeling about the this past week, the week coming up, and the end of college football and football in general coming to an end?
My week was good, and then a team won that ruined everything, so it's not fun right now, but we move on, we digress. Nobody's going to remember this in a week when the NFL gets going again. So after that, I'll be okay, but as of right now, it's not fun. It's kind of sucky, but it is what it is at the end of the day, but I'm just locked in on the NFL and getting draft prep ready to go. Yeah, I was done. I was done with college football like after the semifinals, just because I was like, this is long. I feel like I've been carrying way too much for way too long.
Right?
Because that's normally when it ends, is that like Monday after New Year's, like the 10th or the
Yeah,
like 8th to 10th. Instead,
yeah,
we had to wait a whole nother week, and I'm like, all right, this is a little much. A little
yeah.
much.
So you think they should start it like a week earlier? They think this is the
I think
first.
it should be, I think teams will dive into obviously Ohio State winning their seventh national title, but to touch upon it, like they should do it like the time in between games needs to be way less. Way less. Like the teams played on January 20th, then have to play it again for another 12 days, you
Oh, for
know,
pro
like for the playoff.
January 20th.
December 20th, I mean.
Oh, okay.
December 20th, and they didn't play again till New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. And it's like, that's nearly 2 weeks. And granted, like we had Christmas in between there, but like
Right.
I need it to be a lot shorter.
You think
Of
the plan itself should be shorter?
Yeah, because by the point, my issue is by the time college football was done, like I don't want to be that guy, but like I'm kind of in NFL playoff mode. You
Hmm.
know, like I'm trying to get locked in on the wild card in the divisional rounds and, you know, live with and die by the sword there, but like I don't know, like it's like the championship just finished up and like we're in conference championship play for the NFL and I'm like that's just like way too long. Plus I think ESPN did a terrible job marketing this championship game as well.
Hmm.
I felt no buzz about it. And there should have been more buzz. Like there was genuine like legit storylines.
Yeah.
There was just zero buzz about it at all. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay. If ESPN doesn't care, I'm not going to care because I think ESPN was like Notre Dame's going to get squished.
Right.
And I mean, they kind of did a little bit. The score
Yeah.
is not indicative of how that game really went, but
Right.
um, yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was a long time to uh to be there, to be a fan.
No,
Not gonna
I
lie. It was a lot. You know, like you're asking a college football fan to watch all these bowl games plus, 8 additional games. It's a little much.
I don't know. As a college football fan, I had a good time doing it. You know, I thought the playoffs were exciting. Um, you know, obviously Ohio State winning did make me a happy camper, but I do I do believe that we did get the two best teams in the national title game. I
No,
it.
no.
There were two teams that had that were consistently good on both sides of the ball all year long. Um, and that was Ohio State and Notre Dame. Texas had their times, right? Texas could have arguably been the second team in there, right, and could have been the national title game. Georgia arguably could have, but I'm not going to sit here and say that Georgia looked like the most dominant team in the nation all year long. There times that Texas did, yes. Were there times that Notre Dame did? Yes, of course. Did they have a sorry loss? Yes, yes, they did. Uh, Ohio State had a sorry loss. They did, you know. But at the end of the day, I don't think anybody can sit here and be like there was one dominant team all year long, right? But the most dominant teams made it to the playoffs. They went through the gauntlet. Therefore, you had the best teams play. The
Yeah, I
best
mean,
teams, the best team in each matchup won. Ergo, getting to the two best teams. I believe all the favorites won. Am I wrong with that? Is that an incorrect statement? Did all the favorites win?
um, no, because I think the line shifted at the last second to Penn State, so Notre Dame was technically an underdog.
Were they?
Like at kickoff, they were an underdog. Like the line was Notre Dame -1.5, and then like right before kickoff, it switched to Penn State -1.
Mm,
Like I think that might have been one of the only ones
right.
that I can think of. Yeah, let me pull it up. Yeah, it opened at Notre Dame at -1.5, but it ended with Penn State -1.5.
Yeah. So, all right. With with the exception of Notre Dame being an underdog against Penn State, uh, all of the favorites won their matchup, right? And that was a good game too. So it literally was the line was darn near perfect. Um, so like I don't know how much one could argue that the best teams didn't make it.
I think the argument that I like have is that 12 teams is too many, and I think the seeding of it all was some of the worst seeding I've ever seen. Like,
And I don't think anyone's gonna argue.
I think when you look back at it now that we've
Right.
seen it, like you look back at it and it's like, why on earth is Ohio State an 8 seed, right? Granted,
Hmm.
they lost to Michigan, so it's like a complete overreaction to things as well,
Right.
right? But if you use your logic, like Texas's only two losses were to
Georgia.
Georgia, and they're the number 2 team in the country,
Hmm.
at the time of the ranking. Penn State's loss was to Ohio State and to Oregon, who were both top 5 teams. Like it's a tough, like when you start using your logic, it makes sense, but it's like you look on the paper and it's like Texas has to go play Arizona State, so they're getting rewarded,
Mm.
right? And then it's like Oregon's getting punished because of like they now have to play Ohio State. And then it's
Right.
like Penn State gets Boise State and like so
SMU.
on. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like it should like I do think 12 teams is a fine number to have, but the seeding of it needs to be fixed. Now, granted, I don't think Ohio State would have gotten a bye, right? They still would have had to play 4 games, right?
Right.
Regardless. But
And
it's
it
more so like
arguably would have been easier.
it could have been, right? Because then your first game, you're potentially an 8. Like I think they would have played Tennessee like potentially like no matter what. Like if we were to
Mm.
shake things up again,
Right.
because like you only take out Arizona State and Boise State and fill it with 2 other teams.
Right.
There's a good chance like you probably stay there or you move up and you end up playing, you know,
They would probably be in Notre Dame's shoes and would have had to take Notre Dame's path because
yeah, like it
they
probably
were
would have ended.
7.
Which is like if we do it by the logic, it was like It would have been Oregon. It would have been like 14. It would have been two SEC, two Pac-12, two Big Ten teams in the
Hmm.
top four. It would have been Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Penn State. Then
Hmm.
it's your 5 versus 12 is Notre Dame versus Clemson. Your 6 is Ohio State now playing the 11 seed. I think
Indiana.
Arizona State was ranked lower than Boise State. So like you get Ohio State, Arizona State, then like Tennessee takes
Indiana.
on
Indiana.
Indiana. No, no, takes on Boise State, and then it's oh no, SMU was in the mix, so it would have been Ohio State, SMU.
Hmm.
Then it would have been um, Indiana, Boise State, and then no Tennessee, Boise State, and then Indiana, um, Arizona State. Like that feels a little bit better. Like, granted, I think the way it shakes out, like you could potentially, like with them being a 6 seed, you're right? They were gonna go play the three. Like you still get Ohio State, Texas,
Right.
right, in that next round. But then it's like you now have officially trimmed the fat,
Right.
right? The teams that earned the ticket to the dance, but we all knew had no shot of winning, like you trim the fat,
Hmm.
which is what the first round of playoffs is like you're trimming the fat,
Right.
right? And then now you're looking at like if then you're looking at Notre Dame, Oregon, right? How exciting of a matchup that is, right? You're looking
Hmm.
at Georgia, um, who's the 7 seed I said? Oh, you're looking at Georgia, Tennessee potentially, right? Or Boise State could have gave Tennessee a run for their money, right? You
Right.
never know. And then you're looking at Texas, Ohio State, and you're looking at Penn State, Arizona State potentially, or Indiana. But then it's like you trim the fat. So
Right.
then it's like you get Notre Dame, Oregon. Let's say whoever wins that wins, and then it's so on and so forth. You might end up with the same result because Ohio State this go around was probably one of the most, that was one of the more dominant playoff performances in football that I've seen in a while.
Right.
Like in a whole thing of football. Like I haven't seen a team like dominate consistently like that for a good bit. I'm not
Right.
going to compare them to 2019 LSU,
Yeah,
but
that came up, and I think there are aspects that could be compared, but like I don't think anyone's touching that the offensive side of that
it was
2019 LSU team.
but I haven't seen that dominant of a stretch of football I think since
Yeah.
LSU.
Yeah.
Which is I think that's what the conversation should be is that like LSU was so dominant for like the whole year. They were unstoppable,
Right.
right? But like you would watch games and be like watching Ohio State play football in the playoffs was you would watch them and you never felt like the other team had a shot in
Mm-mm.
heck.
Right.
Like like you watched it and you never felt like they could get in it.
Right.
It wasn't like I haven't felt like that watching college football since, the LSU season where it was like no one's beating these guys.
Right.
Maybe Georgia again when they played TCU because like that everyone's gonna be like TCU didn't well TCU played the game and beat Michigan who everybody raved was like the second best team in the nation.
Right.
So like you got to play the games. But I think that's the aspect I'm feeling was like never in that Notre Dame game that I feel like Ohio State was in trouble. I was just more like this team just like sucks to win out of my sails because like I want to see a good football game and this team isn't going to give me that.
Right. I think what people can hang their head on, where you might disagree about having the two best teams in the national title, I do think that you did have the best team win based on this format too,
Yeah,
right?
like based on the format, the best team weeded itself out.
Right.
Like, and Ohio State had an incredibly difficult-ish path. I don't view Tennessee as the biggest hurdle in the world. Like, did I rave about them? Yes, I did. But like, we're media. Like we have to play both sides of the coin. And I was very much like, if you stop the run, Tennessee's like you're gonna force Nico to throw the ball in the cold, and he's not used to that. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Oregon, I think the Oregon game was probably the most surprising thing was just like how quickly Oregon got like the brakes beaten off of them.
Right,
I will say that's one thing. Like I think for me, that Ohio State Texas game is like an all timer, just because Ohio State couldn't do anything against that Texas defense. If it wasn't for Jack Sawyer making a great play and Texas not knowing how to run the ball on, second and goal or whatever. And at Notre Dame, just like, again, Ohio State, the first 5 drives, they came away with points.
right,
You can't win any ball game if you can't stop the other team.
right. So where does this Ohio State team rank for you? Do you think among college football playoff teams, champions?
I think it's better than the Ohio State team that won in 2014.
Okay,
Um, Grant, like I think that team had talent, but it wasn't to this level on the offensive side. Like Zeke was a beast, but like, I'm trying to think. For me, I think it ranks probably in the like middle or lower side of all time CFP teams. Like you look at obviously LSU's like the number one team,
right,
right? But then you look at Alabama and Tua, and Alabama and Mac Jones were phenomenal,
right,
right? You're looking at the Georgia teams with Stetson Bennett and you had George Pickens at receiver and you know you had all this crazy talent, Brock Bowers and the running backs, And then I still love the Clemson teams with Dabo. Like
right,
I think the Trevor Lawrence teams, the 1 year Trevor Lawrence won, I think that was an incredibly talented Clemson team.
right,
You got T. Higgins, you got ETN, you had a great defense, you know, and I think you probably, you know, I'm not sure about Deshaun's Clemson team, but was Deshaun CFP? Yeah, it was.
yeah. I think it was 2016.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel there. Maybe this Ohio State team like is on that, right? Maybe they're a little bit better than the Clemson teams, like if you really think about it.
Right,
But like those Clemson teams were like crazy special.
right, of course.
I think in the 10 years of the CFP, I think it's probably like 7 or 8 for me.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think I genuinely like I wasn't super impressed with like I don't know like where I'm going with it. I just think the other national championship teams like were just beasts when you really like dig into it. And I think their ceiling is probably 5.
okay.
Because like you're not putting them ahead of LSU. You're not
No,
putting them ahead of the Mac Jones Alabama year,
no.
right? You're not putting them against Georgia. But see,
I I have an argument for that one. I think this defense. So for
no, no, no,
instance,
no, no. The Georgia team where they had 6 first rounders, my friend.
this team's about to have like
I'm
seven,
talking I'm talking like Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean,
like the
Trayvon
2020 the
Walker.
2021 team.
Yes, that team.
That one I you could have more of an argument for, but I
2022 is tough because they beat the crap out of TCU. So it's like you don't
well
really.
I'm gauging well if you have the squad that you had. If CJ Stroud had the defense that this team has, I think I think that Ohio State steadily wins that game
Yes, but
handedly.
but your quarterback's Will Howard.
But Will Howard played phenomenal. So if he's playing like he did,
But would you rather have CJ Stroud or Will Howard?
I would rather have CJ Stroud over Will Howard. But like
So
if I'm swapping this team for if I'm swapping teams, I think this Ohio State team beats that Georgia team. I think the
with well
run. I think
with Will Howard at quarterback.
Switching the teams. If I'm putting this 2024
Okay.
25 team
Because that's not what you said.
against,
You said I would take this team with CJ Stroud. I'm like, that's not what we were talking
well,
about.
I'm saying the defense on the defensive side,
Yeah.
right? Because I
I mean
think
the
that's
offense.
the big factor in that game wasn't the offense. The offense moved efficiently in
Yeah.
that game. It was the defense that didn't hold on multiple occasions.
Would
But
you
if
put
I'm
it
taking
would you put it in front of the Deshaun Watson Clemson team?
so that Deshaun Watson team that year kicked the ever loving crap out of Ohio State um, in that game. I think
Was
I'm
it was
I'm,
it
I'm
was it
gonna
Watson or was it Lawrence that beat the brakes off you?
Deshaun Watson.
It was Watson.
Deshaun Watson. Uh yeah, because yeah, I think I'd probably go Deshaun Watson. I probably would put that team just because, like I had said all year, Ohio State had struggled against the quarterback run, which they had designs for with the they had designs for Deshaun Watson to do that, and he had an arm, right? So what Riley Leonard lacked in this game was the pass game. So if Ohio
Mhm.
State geared up for the quarterback run and that's what they ran, then they were stuffed outside of that first drive. Um, but Deshaun Watson's ability to throw the ball was insane that year. So I'd probably pick. Oh, it's so tough. But that Clemson squad was good, man. I probably wouldn't put anybody else above him though. I don't know that Trevor Lawrence.
I don't know, man. That Trevor Lawrence Clemson team was pretty dominant, man.
Yeah, I know that's a tough
They
one
were
for me.
they're real. That's the thing though, because the Clemson team also had the defense.
Yeah,
Like they had Simmons on the edge who was eating guys' lunch. But not
right.
only could he rush, he could drop back into coverage. Like they also had some nasty dudes at corner, very similar to Ohio State.
Yeah,
Like they had like Wiggins. No, Wiggins was too just now, but like they had some corners that
what gets me twisted is the offensive line for Ohio State. I think a fully healthy offensive line you could probably boost where Ohio State goes in
I
this, but
mean,
because of who they played with in this national championship game, and
would
um,
you I mean, you gonna put him in front of the last year's Michigan?
yes, yes, I am. Yes, I am. That Michigan team again was not all that dominant. I
No,
I, I
dude.
refuse to believe it. I refuse in front of champions at least. I think they were dominant for the year that they were there, right? I didn't believe in. I think if you put Georgia in ahead of Alabama, I think Georgia beats that Michigan team. I think Georgia beats that Michigan team that year. But they got Alabama. They got a Jalen Milrow and a disaster class with Seth McLaughlin in that game, right? Not that I think he was the whole problem, right? Because Jalen Milrow couldn't throw a ball to save his life in that game. But I don't trust I don't trust it on that side of the ball. And I think because this this team this team did exactly what Michigan did the year before, right? They brought back their whole team essentially, right? Ohio State brought in four starters, um, but they returned a majority of their defense, a ton of their offense, and they brought in a quarterback and they brought in an assistant running back, right?
I think you're gonna be so mad when I say this.
Um,
But it's
you're
hard, but
really say the
it's hard to put
Ryan Day versus Jim Harbaugh debate.
not even, dude. Like it's just like the thing is like you played the games. Like had like this Ohio State team played the game against Michigan and lost. And they were way less talented than McCarthy. Like, and you're going to put them as a better championship team than over the McCarthy team that had McCarthy was a great quarterback. They had a phenomenal run game. They won in the trenches on both sides of the ball. D line ate your lunch. They got two guys who are gonna who are freshmen on that team, Mason Graham and Will Johnson, who are now gonna be top 10 picks. Like,
Well, uh,
like we're gonna say that team, like, granted, I think Ohio State's gonna get a decent amount of draft picks, but I'm not sure how many of them are going in the first round.
that's a
Outside of Mbuka, maybe Down sneaks in like late. Sawyer is not getting a ton
Downs is
of hype
staying.
on the DN side of things. Like, you have the two running backs, but you know how they draft running backs in the league. They're not going day one unless you're like a superstar, right?
Hmm.
So when we, you know, I'm getting real close to the camera here, but like when you break it down X's and O's, like
Yeah,
we're
there are.
like, listen, dude, I'm just here to poke holes in.
No, I think
At the
I
end
think
of the
it's
day,
great.
you got seven. You got the seventh one. Like, who cares, right?
Right, and it's just for fun. I think you know it, without taking into account, I think the matchup that Ryan or the history that Ryan Day's had against Michigan, right? I still think if and again, there are things that have changed between last year and this year. We Kyle McCord, I I have talked to you about it before. I'm taking Will Howard 100 times out of over 100 times over than Kyle McCord. I am. I don't care what the hell he did at Syracuse again in that bum conference. I don't care. He's look at his interception to touchdown ratio. It's still ridiculous. He threw mad picks this year, and put his team in positions to lose. I don't care. I'm not saying Will Howard was perfect all year long. I won't, but I will say that he grew into a great quarterback. Um, maybe not top tier great, but I think he is a very decent quarterback. Uh,
I think he's developed enough to where he might get drafted. Team takes him in a backup role. Like,
I think he's a 3 or 4 around 3 or 4 guy. I had him 6 or 7. I think he would be a reliable one, and then I think
I
with
think
his
four.
performance
I
and his
think four.
perseverance,
I think round four would be comfortable for me, depending on the team.
right?
If I'm a different team, I might think differently. But I want to talk a little bit about the game in and of itself.
Yeah.
Um, just offensively, just juggernaut. Just well, how were you nervous after the first Notre Dame drive? Not nervous because you were going to lose, but nervous of like, oh my God, like, are they just gonna sit on the ball the whole game?
I think that there are signs when looking into football games, and I think when if you I don't what you're doing, you can tell a team based on a first drive, right? First drive is going to happen how it's going to happen. You don't know how the team is going to come out, right? You're taking guesses. Could they have guessed that Riley Leonard was going to have a majority to do in this game? Yes. Do I think anybody expected him to run the ball 9 or 12 times in on their first drive? No, not at all. So when they went down, I think I was more worried about Ohio State's game plan in response to a 9 minute and 45 second drive. Right? It wasn't so much of how they were attacking Ohio State; it's the amount of time that they took off the clock. And I'm like, okay, well, Ohio State's going to get 4 possessions this game, right? And you got to hope that whenever Notre Dame gets the ball, however much time that they take off the clock, they're either not scoring or they're kicking field goals. And then the time that Ohio State gets the ball, they're either matching or scoring more points than them in that capacity, right? So I think I don't think I can tell you that I was not nervous. I was more so curious, right? And Ohio State came down in 4.5 minutes and scored, and then scored 3 more times before Notre Dame saw the clock again.
I will say this about Notre Dame, like Riley Leonard put the team on his back for that drive.
Mm-hmm.
But then you didn't develop any type of rhythm. You couldn't get anything going on the run. You couldn't get the pass game going. So like
Penalties
your
killed
whole off
them.
so now your whole offense is out of rhythm because your quarterback carried it 9 times, right? That's a lot of carries for a quarterback,
Right.
right? On a single drive, let alone the whole game,
Right.
right? Riley Leonard finished with near 20 carries,
Hmm.
and it wasn't so much so that like Notre Dame's defense couldn't get home. It was just they were playing a guessing game on defense,
Yeah.
you know, because like Marcus Freeman said, he's like, we try to play zone and we get burned. We try to play man coverage, we get burned. And it was like he couldn't figure out when to push the right buttons when all season he's pushed the right buttons.
Hmm.
And I think that's just because it's like if you go zone, they run the ball. And if you go man coverage, they'll beat you deep. And it's like they were just pushing all the right buttons the whole game. Chip Kelly did a great job calling this game. He almost had a full disaster class at the end of the game, you know, with Will Howard run. And it's like, dude, like you're going to give the ball back to Notre Dame,
He's got
is
momentum.
who had all the moment. Which I wanted to before we talk about that drive for Ohio State, I want to talk about the how do I want to word it? I guess idiocratic move, like it was so idiotic to kick a field goal
For
for Notre Dame.
oh yeah, big time.
Like because
Yeah.
it's for me, here's my thing, right? And everyone's like, "Well, like here's what the frustration is you're down 16. It is a two-score game no matter what.
Right.
In a perfect world, you get 2.2 conversions to
Right.
tie the game,
Hmm.
right? We're not even talking about to win it, just to tie, right? You get down into the red zone. Now, granted, you're at the 9 yard line. It's a long way to the end zone. And
Right.
like you had no momentum on when you got inside the 10. I understand.
Hmm.
But I'd much rather live with being like, we're going to go for this thing because we're going to go try and win. We have to, like, if you don't score on this drive, this game's over. This game's over.
Right.
Right? And I can't like they're down 16, right?
Hmm.
And the thing is too, like you're leaving them in a tough yard situation. You're leaving them at the 9 where if you miss the field goal, you put them back at the 25 in college.
Right.
And you go out there and like just like listen to this. Let's kick a field goal to make a two-score game, a two-score game.
Right.
Dumbest move I've ever seen. And then obviously he doinks the freaking kick, and it's like should have gone for it. Hindsight's 2020, obviously, but like even then, like you're looking at it and it's like, oh well, the next drive Notre Dame scored, and like imagine if
Yeah,
they
but
made the
that, but
kick.
even that was luck because that was when they forced the turnover. Like Ohio
Yeah,
State was driving down the field, and if it wasn't for 3 more inches off or 3 inches off the ground, he would have. That's a first down in Notre Dame territory, and the game's probably over there.
and credit Riley Leonard and Notre Dame, they never gave up.
Right.
Right? But then it's like you kick a field goal down 16 with 9 minutes left in the game. Like, I'd much rather you try and go for the touchdown, right?
Yep.
And try. Because if you score there, like last time I checked, DJ, six is way more than three. It's actually double. And if you get the 2 point conversion, 8 points is almost triple a three. And you're
Mhm.
down 16.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know where the logic comes from. Like, we're gonna like look at the clock, dude. 9 times out of 10, I'm like, kick the field goal like that. But you're down 16 in the national championship game.
Yeah. With 5 minutes left.
Not even, it was with 9.
It says
Was
missed
it
field
5?
goal, 70 yards, 5:19.
That might be also how much time gets elaborated off the clock,
Mm.
like hockey. Either way, Notre Dame only had one more drive after that. They scored the touchdown. They again have to give the ball back to Notre Dame. You're asking your defense to play like the most perfect level of football they've ever played. Wow. You only have three timeouts, and Ohio State's going to chew the clock now.
So they scored, they fumbled the ball, and then they had the missed field goal.
Yes. Like you had
Oh,
all the momentum. Just go for it.
yeah. Okay. Yeah,
And I
no, that's
get, and then you score with, Great House. What a phenomenal catch that was.
catch and
One-handed, basically.
throw. My goodness.
Great throw, great catch, right? And then like you don't get the ball back.
Yeah.
And granted, I don't know what the defense was doing, being like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna leave the best receiver in college football
On an island.
on an island.
Get
Not
him
even an
outside
island,
and
dude.
in.
Not even an island, dude. He was the corner was a whole oceans away from guarding Jeremiah Smith on a go route.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would just have my hand in his pocket. And instead he played inside. I was like, I don't know what you're doing. And then what a ball by Will Howard. I mean, that gr- like gutsy move to do it too and be like, screw it. Like I got that guy down there. Like we're gonna sling it. Because
Mm-hmm.
if he doesn't complete it, you're giving the ball back to Notre Dame with the 2-minute warning still in play.
Right.
So credit to that. I don't question Marcus Freeman a ton because he does tend to get aggressive. Um, but also that fake punt where the wide receiver dropped the ball too, that was brutal. Like Mark Andrews, that was brutal.
Oh.
But also it was like the Justin Fields thing. Why like the backup has never been in on the punt unit the whole year, and now he's in the punt unit.
It,
Anyways, anyways.
it was I think if I'm Marcus Freeman, like I'm looking at it and I think it tells two stories. He's like, one, this defense for Ohio State is kicking my ass, right? Just wearing me down, and it's a lot of respect. But to keep any, I would say, I think that's a momentum booster, right? Or a morale booster, if you will. Not necessarily momentum, but morale. Like, hey, we got points out of this drive. We make another good stop, right? We got the fumble back, right? We can make another stop. That's fine. We make it quick, three and out, and then we're back in business again. We'll have all our timeouts. I think there's a theory behind it. I think there's a momentum thing behind it, and especially morale more than any of it. That he's probably just trying to get on his side. Um, and obviously, the missed field goal just deflates him. But
Pressure.
I mean, um, they got the ball back pretty quick. I mean, after um,
It definitely also felt like Ohio State took their foot completely off the gas in the second
right, they were
half.
playing they were playing clock management. They were
Yeah,
just they
they
were
were
on
so conservative that
it almost drove everybody nuts.
yeah.
They're
Because
like, oh,
like
Ryan
for
Day,
me, at a certain point, I'm also like in a game like that, I'm also selfishly being like, just motorboat them, just waterboard them, keep just keep scoring,
right?
submit them. But instead, like they played the game they were supposed to. But those were the two things I wanted to get off my chest was why did you kick a field goal and why did you leave that corner on an island against the best receiver in the country?
Yeah, that's just that I don't know if that's a Marcus Freeman call. I mean, but I know he's a defensive mind, so it's hard for me to wrap my head around that.
Well, he lost his defensive coordinator today. His defensive coordinator went to the Bengals.
Oh, did they officially sign him? Wow. Um, but I don't think that they're going to miss completely defensively moving forward. That I think Marcus Freeman is a great defensive mind. He'll have it straightened out, but I don't know. That's the bold play call. I guess I can understand trying to go out, sell out for the run, but even then, I'm keeping one over top, and I'm playing Jeremiah Smith like a magnet
Yeah,
on
dude.
him like white on rice.
Overall, I want to get your feeling of the entire college football season. Granted, for you, you're on cloud nine. You won the whole dang thing. But I want you to walk away as a neutral thing. How did you feel? Because personally, I think this was one of the best college football seasons in a long time. I've never felt more. I will say the one good thing the CFP did for the first time, like being in this, it felt like games really mattered like all year. Like every game mattered, because not one loss eliminated you like it did in the past. Now, granted, I think Notre Dame should not have been in regardless because they lost to Northern Illinois. Besides the point. Um, but like I felt like games really mattered. Like Ohio State, not Ohio State, Ole Miss, Georgia. Like that game had so much on it, and like Ole Miss wasn't even like in the picture. They were at the time, but
Mhm.
that like they were like, you know what I'm saying? Like those games like mattered a ton, right? And then it's like you see these teams, and I thought it was a cinema college football season. I thought it was phenomenal. Say what I've been very vocal about my displeasure for the CFP, but I mean, the semifinals were some of the best football I've ever watched. I
Right.
mean, it had everything you wanted. You had drama, you had suspense, you had it was a perfect semifinals,
Hmm.
right? And Ohio State came out on top, which I'm not too thrilled with because I hate them, but
Why do you hate
congratulations.
them? I feel like we need to dive into this. Like,
I'm just so over it. Like I think I also follow like some other Ohio State fans like on Twitter or in like big media companies, and they're like 10 years has been a long time, and they're like I'm just like, buddy, hush. Like I get it. Winning a championship's a big deal. I do think you should care about it. But when you're telling me everyone doubted you in these whole 9 yards, and it's like, relax. You were like consistently the best team in the like all year. And then you lost to Michigan. Like you're gonna get clowned for the rest. Like the real winner is Michigan to me.
yes, Michigan does have a lot to brag about.
Because they
Um,
won a national championship and they beat you and you won a national championship. Like it's just like it's for me, I thought it was good. I just like for something about Ohio State, I think it's some of the fans. They just like you have seven natties. Relax. Relax. Me as a Mizzou fan, I would kill to even like sniff a conference championship. Like 2013, 2014 was like peak Mizzou football for me.
it was
I've been
peak Mizzou
chasing
football. It's been peak Mizzou football since.
I've been chasing. No, last year was electric. Last year was the first time I felt very excited about Mizzou football.
Yeah.
Because we were we ended up I think 9-2 or whatever, or 10-2, and then we beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Like
I'm glad nobody remembers that. I'm
I
glad you're the
remember
only
it.
one that does.
Literally have a shirt from the Cotton Bowl. Like that's what it means. That's what it means to us. For you guys, it was like, oh, the Cotton Bowl, we're all gonna opt out. But for Mizzou, it's like we haven't been in the Cotton Bowl since 2014.
Right.
Like that's where I get frustrated. It's like for me, I wanted to see Notre Dame fans like win another natty because they haven't won a natty since I think 88, since Lou
Yeah.
Holtz was a coach, right?
Oh, Frankie old Lou Holtz.
I will say I was really hoping Ryan Day was gonna be like, where's Lou Holtz at? I was hoping for that. That would have been hilarious. That would have been a great soundbite. Did you see the one lady drive the cart into the wall?
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
That was bad.
That set woman back 50 years with
That was so bad.
something like
That was so bad. I just don't know how you don't see it, first off. And second of all, how do you think you're gonna like continue? Like she messed that cart up.
it didn't move. It didn't move after.
No, the wheel was like completely like out.
Oh, I didn't see the other side of it.
Or it was like the front, the wheel that you could see was completely like just like almost like ripped off,
Oh
like the
wow.
handles. But Yeah, that's a tough beat. That's an all-time tough beat. Like you have the national winning quarterback and head coach, and you run a golf cart into the wall.
You see him, he was like, I don't know. I think
He
I'm going.
almost got like he almost caught the brunt of it. Like if he had his leg out, his leg is getting broken,
Mhm.
but yeah. Shall we talk
I didn't.
conference?
I didn't even get the chance to answer your question to me.
Because I'm sick of your opinion. You Ohio State fan.
It
I don't
wasn't
want
even
it.
that.
I don't even want it. I don't even want your opinion. That's how mad I am about it.
Dog, it's fine.
No, no, talk. Tell us, give us it and all its greatness and glory, DJ.
Okay, so the college football season as a whole, it was, like you said, electric. I think this was one of the best ones that kept everybody on their toes week in and week out. The games did. They felt more important than they ever did during the regular season, right? It kind of felt, I will say that towards the end, that the teams at the top didn't have to perform at a level going into the last week or so, maybe second to last week, in order to make it in. And I don't know how you fix that, but like Georgia's performance against Georgia Tech, right? Georgia loses that game, right? Nothing really happens to them, I don't think, right? They drop, but they don't drop out of the playoffs.
Alabama probably would have gotten in over them.
Would they? Where would that have been in the SEC championship game though? Would that have boosted somebody over?
No, I think Georgia was going to play in it no matter what.
Right. And so then you have Georgia, Texas, and Georgia wins, and the same thing still probably happens, right? Ohio State loses to Michigan, right? That had some major implications on it because Penn State, Indiana, etc. Well, I guess not really because they didn't move. So Ohio State losing to a really bad Michigan team didn't have as much of an implication, right? Um,
Which I do think is, I think for some fans that's frustrating.
right. But
But
like,
continue.
where were you gonna? Where were the question would be where would you put them in a season in
Yeah.
its totality, right? Like you're not gonna put Miami above them. You're not gonna put Alabama above them. So they're still in. They're just versus a 14 playoff. I mean that spoils everything for Ohio State. That spoils everything. Um, no Natty, no Big Ten championship. Ryan Day's probably out as head coach.
I also I want to jump in. I do think the 12 team playoff also has affected AP ranking drastically. You
Oh,
know,
they're so much better. They're so much better.
I think it got worse.
Do you?
Like because like Penn State was consistently a top 5 team all year.
Yeah, something's
But then they played Ohio State and got, the game was not like if you watch the game, Penn State was never in it.
right.
But like, you know, like that loss would have knocked Penn State out as well, out of the whole thing. But
Yeah.
because they lost and they really didn't play anybody else super major, because again, they avoided Oregon, they avoided USC, right? You avoided some other you avoided Indiana as well.
Mhm.
Like that's what I'm kind of more like. I felt like the rankings were way off. Like Notre Dame was ranked fourth at the time, and I was like, for what? They lost to Northern Illinois and didn't play anybody.
Right.
They played Army and Navy. Congrats. You beat teams that run the offense from the 1800s.
1940s. Yeah, no, I agree. I know how you fix that. There are some like ranking things, but like I think a majority of the season they did really well. Um it was such an exciting season. I think NIL has really influenced the competitiveness in this game. You are, I mean, I think it's hard to judge on one season, right? But you see a more even playing field than we have ever seen in college football, right? So, I'm not going to sit here and stipulate that if teams were paying players or not, but you know, you had the most dominant programs that got the best players all the time. And like you said, you had starting quarterbacks as your backup and starting quarterbacks as your third strings. But now it's very, very hard to find that. So with that, it makes the parity throughout the sport like very clear, right? Georgia struggling against Kentucky was a tail. Alabama struggling against Oklahoma was a tail, right? Where teams not only coaching wise got beat, but also just in player talent and what these teams are used to having, right, is no longer there. So um, I think that really showed its face this year. Um, and I think it's also fun to note that the two teams that brought back their players the last 2 years, um, actually the last 3 years, right? Because Georgia did it as well. Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, after NIL opened up, all brought back national championships. So I think moving forward, that the unity, the union, um, the togetherness that you form with your team is really going to have an impact on how your team performs going in the future. If the culture of your program stays high, your team will still be up there when it matters most. So, and as we can see, faith played a huge role. I want to take a quick second to recognize that, regardless of what your religion is, right, that these two teams in the national that played in the national title game became very close and very open with their faith, and it was, you know, call it a miracle. Some call it how it played out, but the two teams that were open about how they felt about their faith, and where they decided to glorify who they praise, made it to the national title game. And, they really, no pun intended, but they really did do God's work this year, and they got it paid off for them. So a lot of different things happened this season. That was just truly remarkable, and God, I can't wait for next year. Can it be August already or September, whenever it starts?
Yeah, I think that was one of the bigger ones. I think faith being on display, I think was massive. Obviously, on the Notre Dame side, that is part of like I think the university side.
And Marcus
Um,
Freeman bringing back Mass
yeah,
before Brian Kelly got rid of it.
yep. And I think Ohio State and their belief and everything else, um, I think it's worked out in dividends for them and different things like that. Let's talk some NFL
Yep.
conference championships. Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, Commanders. Let's break these down super quickly. Um, Bills and Chiefs, probably the matchup of the probably the season.
Mm-hmm.
Can Josh Allen get it done? Can the Bills go back to the Super Bowl? They haven't been since they went the four time back in the 90s with Jim Kelly.
Lost all
Um,
four.
all lost all four. Can Pat Mahomes get back to what would it be, a fourth Super Bowl now or a fifth? Something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
I think it'd be a fourth Super Bowl, a chance for a three-peat. Um,
First three-peat as well.
First three-peat, I believe, in NFL history. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's talk a little bit about what we see. I mean, for me, I want to kick it off with probably this is going to be great. The question mark is going to be defensive lines because the Bills' defensive line struggled mightily against the Ravens. Um, and the Chiefs' defensive line is one of the best in the NFL. Chris
Right.
Jones, right? You have George Karlaftis. Like they can attack you in so many different ways. The linebacker core of Nick Bolton solid. You have Justin Reed, who's all over the field, right? And then you look on the Bills side of things, they got Matt Milano, who's a great secondary. I mean, the secondary for the Bills is elite. Terrence Bernard, Damar Hamlin, like the list goes on. And then we know what they can do on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think the tall tale sign in this game is going to be Josh Allen, right? He is going to decide how this entire game is going to go. If the defensive line for Kansas City stays as dominant as they have been, his decision making is going to what's going to make or break this game. Are we going to see the Josh Allen of old, where he's going to try to do too much with the ball, play hero ball, or is he going to be able to rely on his players to be in the right spot, his offensive line to do what they need to do, and let the game play out? Uh, and I think that's tough, being that he is this offense. He is the offensive identity of this team. You know, James Cook back there um, is a solid running back. You have Dalton Kincaid and the other one that I always forget,
Knox.
Dalton Knox. Um, that are very reliable tight ends, very explosive tight ends. Um, and it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be cold at Arrowhead once again. And you know what is Josh Allen's mental like right now? Where is his head at going into this game? You know, he has been beaten by Patrick Mahomes the last or 3 of the last 4 years, 2 of the last 3 years, right? Um, so I think he is solely going to be the determining factor in this game because I think the Chiefs are beatable, right? The Chiefs are beatable. I think it's we saw it earlier this year, right? I think it's again just like um in college, it's hard to beat the same team twice, right? And it's not like I think it's easier when you play them in the regular season in the NFL, but now you're playing a playoff Andy Reid, a playoff Patrick Mahomes. You have playoff schemes. Like they're pulling extra tricks out in order to get by and get to the next round. Um, so, but to this point, Kansas City has still looked beatable. Um, so I think it's going to solely rely on Josh Allen, and I think it would be absolute cinema, Jacob. Here's my dream finish. You ready? Do you have something to add before I get into this dream finish?
I mean, I was gonna kind of just touch upon. I think it's the Bills' game. But it's in Arrowhead. Pat Mahomes always does something. He either gets a call to go his way,
Oh
the
God.
refs are gonna play a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like I've heard statistics of like teams do get penalized just as much as the Chiefs, but it's also like they're not getting penalized in these big moments in some of these games, and it's just tough sometimes. Um, I just think the Chiefs just like they always do something, and teams just forget to play football for some odd reason. Like the Texans forgot to cover Travis Kelce. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like teams just forget to play ball.
Right.
I think the Bills are ready. I think Josh Allen, I think is fine. I think the difference though is like Josh Allen has beaten Mahomes in the regular season, but he hasn't faced Mahomes in a couple years. And I think this is a different Josh Allen. He takes care of the ball a lot better than he has in the past. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, no turnovers in the first two games, right? And he's at an all-time low touchdown to interception ratio this season.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think it's the Bills' game to lose. Neither team like has the sexiest offense, but I think the run game of the Bills I think has the ability to cause a lot of trouble. And
Yeah.
if that game gets significant, because it's not just James Cook, it's Ray Davis and it's Ty Johnson. And Ty Johnson has become the Isaiah Pacheco of the Chiefs. He's a great pass catching back. He's elusive in space. He can get the first downs on a 3rd and 3. Like I think these teams match each other up really, really, really well. You have a big receiver, Hopkins, Cooper. You have a speedy guy. They have Worthy. They have Shakir, and then they have a guy who's a little bit of everything. They got Keon Coleman, and then they got Hollywood Brown, and then they got two athletic freaks in tight ends and Kincaid and in Kelsey. And then we'll see how it all matches up. They match up great. Um, I want the Bills. I just think it'd be awesome. I think it has to happen.
Hear
Because
me
if
out.
this keeps happening with Pat Mahomes, like I'm getting real sick and tired of like I might not watch, you know, football for a little bit on Sundays. And Pat Mahomes is doing his thing. So
Hear me out, Jacob. You ready? All-time dream finish right here. Here, let me make sure everyone can see me. Patrick Mahomes goes down and scores, forces overtime. It's a coin flip game. Patrick Mahomes gets the ball first, right? They go down and score. Oh, but wait, this is different because Josh Allen gets the ball. He gets a chance to score on the offensive side. He goes down and scores, but wait, they're not looking for an extra possession, Jacob. They're going to go for two. Josh Allen, QB draw for the win. Bills go to the Super Bowl.
I think they get the extra possession either way.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Kansas City goes down, right? No one,
Oh,
but instead, right? Because he's gotten the ball first in the past, and then he's won. But no, Bills get it back this time. Au
but
contraire, Patrick Mahomes. Bills go down, score. Josh Allen goes for 2 points, wins.
I will say it's I
Cinema,
just I just
cinema.
got I just got a feeling Sean McDermott's gonna do some he's gonna do something that's gonna cost them the game too. Like coaching wise, I don't trust Sean McDermott as much as I trust Andy Reid.
Oh, I mean,
Um,
I don't think anybody would or should.
but let's go ahead and let's talk Commanders, Eagles. Jaden Daniels, I think, is the only storyline this game truly matters.
Hmm.
Because if Jaden Daniels is playing the way he's playing, the Eagles are in for a rough go of it.
I think
Uh,
anybody is trying to guard
like
Jaden Daniels.
I mean, this kid is special, man. He takes care of the ball. He makes the right read. He doesn't try to get flashy. He doesn't try to force the ball either. If it's not there, he just runs. And then if the run game gets going for the Commanders with Eckler and Robinson, it just like takes off from there, right? But then on the flip side, you have the Eagles, and they have that freakishly good defense and that crazy athletic offensive line, and they have Saquon Barkley, and he ran all over the Rams. And you're going into Philly on a cold Sunday, right? It could snow again. Like
Yeah, but this
you
is
never
nothing
know.
new. This is nothing new for Washington
I
playing the
know.
Eagles.
I will say though, I think if there's a rookie quarterback to go to the Super Bowl, because I don't think a rookie quarterback has ever gone to the Super Bowl, um, he's the guy to do it.
Was
He's the guy to do it.
Joe Burrow?
No, no.
He got injured his first year, right? Okay.
It was like his second or third year when he went to the Super Bowl.
He was his second.
Um, it's just like it's one of those things where you look at it and it's just like what happens with Jalen Hurts too? Because Jalen Hurts is playing good football, but you need Jalen Hurts to play great football. Because the thing about the Commanders is that they will capitalize on your mistakes and they will not make any. And
Mm.
granted, they also have been a little frisky and a little lucky, right? And at the end of the day, that's what you need to win football games. You got to get frisky, you got to get lucky, you need some balls to bounce your way, right? And that's just the way it's going to end up going out. But I just think this team is, um, Commander's team isn't super sexy, but everybody plays the right part. Dan Quinn's really good. I think Sirianni has a real chance to become the most vaulted man in Philly or the most hated man in Philly. People don't like him, but there's a chance he may be the most hated man in Philly. Um, so yeah, I think I'm going with the Eagles. I'm not even thinking I have to go with the Eagles. I don't have a choice, as you know, in this situation. Um, but yes, it's I think the Birds go back. If we get Bills Eagles, like as a football fan, I'm extremely happy. Extremely happy. Josh Allen's first Super Bowl, Saquon's first Super Bowl. And I think Saquon is like loving the moment. Like he's
Oh
loving
yeah.
everything. Like he wants to play. He wants to perform. And he has. And I think he is the biggest factor for the Eagles. And Jaden Daniels makes it all work for the Commanders.
Yeah, so I'm just looking back here. I think this is the Eagles' game to lose, 100% through and through. They did face off earlier this year. Jalen Hurts did not play in this game though. Played 4 snaps in this ball game. Saquon Barkley did play though. Ran all over um, Washington. Ran for 150 yards on just about 30 carries. Um, Eagles, though, came out on top. Jaden Daniels, 5 tutties. 5 tutties. That's a crazy, incredible, uh, stupid good. I think in this game, Jalen Hurts and his performance is definitely going to be more of a difference maker. The Commanders, the last few games, have had a pretty, I would say, a pretty solid defense. I'm not going to say that they were great, but I would say that's pretty solid, right? I mean, Detroit's a different breed of football, right? But when it mattered, they stood up tall. Tampa Bay has a rather explosive offense, right? Depending on how Baker's playing, pretty explosive. Held them to 20 points and held strong when it mattered. Um, so I think in a boat race, I think I'd have to pick the Commanders. If we're boat racing, I give me Jaden Daniels, the decision making, Terry McLaurin, the explosive backfield uh, that can do both pass catch and run, but the consistency of how well they can do it all game long is what makes me nervous. So if the defense can keep this game either close or Philly's defense fails to show up and it's just an absolute boat race, I could go the Commanders' way. The unfortunate side is I think the Eagles do come ready to play. I think, man, I want to go with the Commanders. I can't put it in myself, but I also couldn't put it in myself last week against Detroit. I think for the vibes, I'm going with the Commanders. For the vibes, I'm going with the Commanders. I'll go. This game will be closer than last week's. Um, I'll probably go 31-28 Commanders on a game-winning field goal.
Well, I found out a little fun stat here. The
Okay.
Ohio State Notre Dame National Championship was the third lowest viewed playoff title game on record.
See, I saw something that said it was the second highest. Oh, it was the second highest attended national championship game, is what it was.
Yes, lowest viewed, 22 million.
Well,
A lot of people watched, but not as much.
I mean, how bad was it? How bad was it? What were the other ones?
I
Worst one
think
was
Georgia,
probably Georgia,
I think
TCU.
I think the worst one's Georgia TCU.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look at the history.
And probably Michigan, Georgia.
No. That was never a title game though.
Michigan, Georgia
No, it wasn't.
wasn't it the 2021 year?
Nope. That was the Orange Bowl. That was the semifinals.
Who did they play that year then?
College football playoff viewership. Hmm. Averages 22.1 million viewers, third lowest since 2014. Um, It outdrew Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia's route of TCU.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The second lowest was Georgia, TCU, and uh, hold on, let me read this. Drew an average. ESPN announced the Ohio State Notre Dame matchup was down from last year's Michigan Showdown, which averaged 25. Finale of the inaugural 12 team drew the smallest viewership for a title game in the CFP era, compiled by Sports Mirror. It outdrew January's 2021
January, January.
Alabama. It outdrew Alabama, Ohio State in 2021 and Georgia, TCU.
Mm,
Three.
Alabama, Ohio State. Yeah, that was kind of a beatdown. That was a bit sad year. Clemson was our national title game, but it was. I didn't know Alabama and Georgia played each other in 22. I forgot about that.
Yes. So there's that. All
So,
right, brother.
well, this has been the deal with D and J.